Hey, Jack, thanks so much for joining us. I know it's dinner time in London, but it's wonderful to talk with you today on Enola's premiere today.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be talking to you.
Yeah, well, I'm intrigued because I'm a writer, but I've never written a screenplay. And every time I watch the Academy Awards or something, there's the award for Best Adapted Screenplay, and I think a lot of people think, oh, that's the easy screenplay to write because that's based on a book or an existing story, and you just kind of cut and paste a lot of it, right? So I was curious, is it really easier than an original screenplay, or what are the challenges what were the challenges to adapting Enola?
It's very different, and it's very different from each book. Each book you're doing it creates a different set of problems. There is a joy to having a story. There is a real joy to be able to disappear inside another author's head, to not have the responsibility of being the sole brain, if you like, in that scripting process. Later on down the line, there are many brains get involved, but in that first instance, that first blank page, to be sharing the page with someone that's already trod this story before is very, very nice. But technically, it can be very, very tricky, and you are required. There's a lot of obviously the internal monologue is a central part of the writing process for novelists, and there is a lot of trying to work out how what works on the page can work on the screen, and that can be really, really hard.
I bet. In some ways, I think it might be more challenging because you've got to make all sorts of decisions about what to keep from the book, what works, what will work on the screen versus what might not work, things like that.
Yes, yes, yes. I've got to say I love it though. So
Yeah.
it is one of my favorite things to do.
Oh, cool. Well, hey, I read, speaking of that, I read that when you were writing his Dark Materials, that the first draft underwent 46 drafts. And we're talking to a lot of beginning writers out there today. And so I think it's really important for them to know that when you write the first draft of something, there's still a lot to come. But 46 drafts is also a lot. So
It is a
I was
lot.
just wanting to get your perspective on revision and maybe your sense of perfectionism and why it requires 46 drafts.
So I would say for me, it takes 3 or 4 drafts until I'm happy. The difficulty on his Dark Materials was that no one could decide what they were happy with. So we were constantly, and we were trying to find an American partner. And we didn't have an American partner. So we had the BBC involved, but we didn't have an American broadcaster, and we needed that chunk of money. So there was a lot of sort of trying to find our way, experimenting with new things. And it was all about what is an incredibly dense and very, very complicated book. How to package that for television. And Philip Pullman is a headache. He's a headache to read, and he's a headache to adapt. But what a glorious, glorious headache he is.
I love that. A glorious, glorious headache. Well, speaking of maybe less glorious headaches, I also read that you sometimes write as many as 14 hours a day, which I have to say to people who maybe don't write out there, that is like the upper limit of what I hear from most writers. When I first became a writer, I read Hemingway's A Movable Feast, and he had this model of writing for 2, 3, maybe 4 hours, quitting before he, kind of spent all of his energy. And then he would have a wonderful afternoon full of inspiration to get ready for the next day. And I know that you don't go for walks for inspiration. You stay at the computer and you thrash your way through to find the story. So why does staying at the computer, because that's very punishing. Why do you do that instead of, take a walk or I don't know, something else?
Yeah, I mean, he went bullfighting and stuff, didn't he? So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Nice
I don't know
leisurely
that I could
activities.
necessarily, I don't know that I necessarily would want to do that. And he was a very tortured man. Um, I the the truth is twofold. One is it's the graft helps me. So that process of throwing things away helps me a lot. That I like to have the ability to walk down lots of dark alleyways. and go, nope, this is wrong. I need to reverse. And the other thing is, I really love it. And I'm slightly psychologically dependent on it. So I will quite happily just disappear into my own head for a long time. I don't really do 14 hours a day anymore. And the reason why I don't is because I've got a kid. And sadly, being a parent carries some time responsibilities with it. And I want to be part of his life. But I still do work insane hours, and I love it. Yeah.
That's actually great to hear, because I think sometimes there's too much made of the anguish that a writer needs to go through. And when I imagined you sitting there for 14 hours, I imagined it being somewhat anguished, but it sounds like you're actually kind of being playful and having fun.
No, it's anguish. It's horrible. And
Okay.
you know, I remember my father-in-law came and stayed once, and he kept on asking me at the end of every day. I was going to the library at the time to work, and then coming back, and he kept on saying, "Good day, Jack. Good day." And after like 4 or 5 days, I was like, David, I have like one good day in 14, maybe. You know, most days are just like hammering my head against the table. So no, it wasn't a good day, and it will unlikely be a good day tomorrow. So maybe we shouldn't ask that question anymore.
Okay, kind of Sisyphean, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, well, speaking of good days, what was the best the thing you enjoyed most about turning Enola Holmes, the series, into a script?
Uh, One, beautiful books by Nancy, who I believe you're talking to tonight too, which is and she's amazing. And I had my pick, you know, that I could go that when Legendary sent me this job, that you know they said use any of the books that are useful to you, and that was glorious, being able to take little snippets from all over the place. Um, Two, I love Enola, and I love writing her. And I knew I was writing from Millie from the beginning, that it was Millie's project. And so I always had her in my head, and always had a version of her in my head. And I was also talking to her through the process. So I was getting to know her. And that was really special too. So I'd say both those things.
That's so cool. I was thinking, because I know Nancy did at least a fair amount of research into Victorian England in order to write the books. Sounds like part of your research was getting to know Millie's voice and Nancy's novels.
Yeah.
Did you also do research in terms of the time period?
Yes, though the reason why the 1884 Reform Act is in there is because I studied it. That I studied a lot of British 19th century history. Was a period that always fascinated me. So I did do some research, but I also had some prior knowledge, which I was trying to inject into the script.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, speaking of Millie and Millie's voice and getting to know that, and kind of characterizing Enola through that, I'm curious, because dialogue seems to me like that's the main tool of a screenwriter well, for everything in some ways, but especially for characterization. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you use dialogue as a tool for characterization, or how you used it in this movie.
Well, one of the central things I did was have her break the fourth wall, and I did that partly because uh, it was useful. The film had to be about her being alone. That was the whole subject. And the reason why Sherlock has Watson, and the reason why, you know, Lyra has Pan, is that you need someone to riff off. Otherwise, you are a character just walking down the streets on your own. And so there was a part sort of like, this will be useful. I can make the camera her friend, so that her loneliness is visually depicted in the fact that we are the people that she has to talk to. She doesn't have anyone else to talk to. And the second reason is that I felt like this is a story that had that slight Shakespearean feel to it, and that ability to kind of share thoughts with the audience felt like something that could be very fun and give it a different tonal feel. Fleabag series one had just come out, and I was a massive fan of it. And I did, when Legendary first contacted me about it, I said, you need to watch Fleabag. And this was before Harry was involved. And that also was going through my head.
Oh, very cool. I love Fleabag, and I love this as a
Yeah,
technique. I love it as a technique of to show her aloneness in that inner dialogue as well. So that's
yeah.
really inventive. Well, I'm curious. Do you have a favorite moment of dialogue or a little scene you could share with us in conclusion? Right after you do this, I'm going to invite everyone to go and watch the movie. So this would be a great send off.
So there is a scene that came very, very late in the film. I won't quote it because that feels weird, but there's a scene that comes very, very late in the film between. Oh no, I'm not going to say that. I was about to say something that I realized then is a massive spoiler for the film.
Uh-oh,
So
sorry.
I'm not going to say that. So I am going to say instead. Uh, oh no. Well, yes. Okay. I'm going to say instead that Lestrade is one of my favorite characters in this. He's played by a wonderful actor and a friend of mine called Adil Akhtar. And when she meets Lestrade, it's in this country house, and they both get evicted from it together. And then they have a competition as to who knows Sherlock best, and it's very playful in terms of that thing of just kind of playing within the sort of tropes of Sherlockian, intrigue, but also a bit silly. And I think it's very resonant within our film. It's very representative of our film. So yes, I'd say that's the moment between Lestrade and Enola. But really, my favorite scene is very close to the end, and when you watch the film, it'll be very clear why it's my favorite scene. But I can't say it now.
Well, I love your description of that one scene of being full of Sherlockian intrigue and silliness because that really comes through in the trailers that I've watched. I'm looking forward to those characteristics. So thank
Yeah,
you so much, Jack, for joining us. It's been a delight, and I love the screenplay from what I've seen of it on the trailers, and I can't wait to see the whole film basically now.
thank you, thank you, thank you. I really, really hope you like it.
I will. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us from London, and I'll let you get back to your son and your dinner and the premiere of Enola today.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.